So we're obviously delighted to have the Sisters of Life here with us. We have Sister Lumen Gloriae, we have Mother Agnes, we have Sister Veritas and Sister Nazareth. So just so delighted, we'd love to give them a round of applause just to welcome them and to thank them for coming. So please do just raise your hands, otherwise I will start with a question from Mother's Talk. You talked about the concept of spiritual amnesia, and I really feel that we're now living in an age where purposelessness is really becoming the pandemic, and that leads to loneliness and isolation. So I'd love to ask you guys what you feel is the answer to this, and I'd love that from a Catholic perspective, but also for our secular brothers and sisters who don't yet know Christ, how they should really lean into their purpose and, find genuine love.
Well, I guess I would start with night fever. Today, here at St. Patrick's, I think being evidently and expansively open to the world, with your faith, and bringing the faith to the streets and allowing others to consider the possibility,
I would just briefly say I spoke on this a little last night, but to resist the temptation to define yourself by what you do and by your work, that your identity is ultimately not a worker, it's a beloved son or daughter. And to do that, I would highly recommend for anyone, Catholic or secular, to really commit to leisure, to true leisure, each day a little bit and a lot on Sundays, but just to allow ourselves to receive the beauty of God, the beauty of everything he's given us, and to do something that makes us feel like a kid again, like painting or running or writing a short story or something that we're actually engaging our whole being. And in that, we actually then receive the beauty of God, and it actually opens our hearts to reality that's huge and deep and rich, and it opens people's hearts to receive the gospel in a new way if they're not familiar with that. There's because every time we touch beauty, we touch the Lord,
Thank you so much. I love that because I often have to remind myself that we are human beings, not human doings. And I think leaning into rest and recreation and getting that childlike glee back is so important. So thank you for that. So I think something that I would like to go just on the back of what Sister Veritas just said. There's a lot of talk in psychology now about mothering your inner child, for example. There's a lot of talk in secular psychology, and just what you're saying about really remembering how, what gave you joy as a child. How would you recommend we really lean into that? I know that we are suffering with such busyness, and also busyness becomes a status symbol as well. So how can we overcome that in these modern times and really lean into finding that childlike joy again?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is the gift that we can give others in that, of actually being able to reveal to them their goodness. Because, this idea of allowing ourselves to be a child again, we actually can create a culture of that. Because if I'm trying to do that just by myself, it can often be really difficult, because especially if as you're saying, Delphi, the reality is to be busy becomes okay, that's when I'm I've made it. If you're around only people who experience that and they're living from that place, it can be really difficult to go against the mold. So actually the gift that we give each other and living in communion in that place of, let's try it together. Let's do this together. Let's go take a nice walk together. Let's go paint together. Let's go, do whatever together. Actually giving others a space in which, let's build a culture together and not just try to be the fish swimming upstream by myself to do it.
Yeah, these are all beautiful responses. I think I'm thinking of something Sister Veritas shared last night of in her talk, where she said to remember who I am and whose I am. So who I am as a child of God, we all are, thanks be to God for our baptisms, and therefore we belong to him, and we can rest in that truth, and just learn to rest in the Father's gaze. I would say also maybe silence is an important part of the whole picture too, in being still, and we move so fast. But there was a priest in Holland actually you may have read it, we had it in one of our imprint magazines, who did an experiment of wearing a badge which just said 10 minutes. and he would walk around in, I don't know if it was Amsterdam, and he waiting people to ask him, and is this what does 10 minutes mean? Or I think maybe he handed out stickers with 10 minutes, and he was challenging them to make space for 10 minutes of silence in their day, and he meant complete silence. And he would give them a card and ask them to get back to him with what happened if they made space for 10 minutes of complete silence, turning off the phone, turning off everything. And it was remarkable, the responses that he got of people really saying, I was an atheist, I think God might exist. From 10 minutes of silence, literally transformative space of silence. So, God is never outdone in generosity. You give him a tiny amount and he will pour his love into that moment. So yeah, for me, that's a key of childlikeness, to know the Father, to know that I'm his. Yeah.
Thank you. That's so beautiful. We've got a question at the back here.
Hello. Thank you, sisters. Thank you, Mother, for your talk. I'd like to ask you to say a bit more about spiritual motherhood. I think you kind of talked a lot about motherhood and maternity, but maybe particularly from the point of view of people who aren't mothers of children or aren't mothers of living children. I think sometimes it can be a bit alienating to hear, oh, femininity is all about motherhood, if actually that's not your current reality, particularly if it's a desired reality, but isn't the case. What do you mean by spiritual motherhood?
Well, spiritual motherhood is a powerful force and is found everywhere throughout life. I mean, think of those women who have impacted us, teachers, it may have been an aunt or a neighbor, a mother who was a mother in the neighborhood who really mothered us. It might have been a coach, or a tutor at some point. But at any rate, there's the opportunity for that expression of maternity is rich and throughout life and received so well by those who have. I can give you just an example of it. We had a professor once. We were a bunch of graduate students, and we were going to a class in a different place. She was teaching a practicum. And when we arrived, she was not Christian, but she was a Japanese woman. And when we arrived, she had the whole table set for tea for all of us. We were stunned, but she wanted to begin the relationship in a human way, before she would teach us anything. And I think that women have an innate sense of how to receive the other, and it makes powerful differences in the lives of people and is expressed regardless of one's state in life.
I think just to piggyback on that, I think, like as Mother is saying, but like every woman is called to be a spiritual mother. Not every woman is necessarily called to have physical children, but every woman is called to be a spiritual mother. And we often, in our mission of hope and healing for women who have experienced abortions, just this truth that maternity is forever. And so it's just kind of who we are as human persons, that there's the mother is meant, or the woman is meant in a way to be a home to another person. But even how we receive each other in conversation, how we look back at the other, how we speak with the other person, like that can actually be a way of spiritually mothering another person or being a mother. And it's just really powerful. But I think I just want to acknowledge too that there's a reality of many people's different life experiences of not getting married and wishing to, or having suffered miscarriage or abortion or things like that. There's a sorrow there that it makes me think of Mother Mary Frances, who was an American Poor Clare nun, and she said that the vocation of a woman is to suffer and to love. And there's a reality, I think, which in meditating on Mary at the foot of the cross, that every woman, there's a particular reality to that, that we have a heart that can be pierced in a particular way. And I feel like this is like worth a whole dissertation, so I feel like I'm not doing justice to anything right now, but maybe Sister Nazareth can catch me.
Sister. No, you're doing beautifully, Sister. I love it. Thank you for sharing. The only thing that's coming to mind for me there is that, it's to say that love has a form. love has a form, a giving and a receiving that is fruitful. We know that. It's the Trinity, right? And that it shapes itself differently in men and women. So yeah, we say every woman and every man is called to love in a way that is fruitful. That'll look differently, but we're all called to paternity and maternity, to a love that is a giving and a receiving that is fruitful. So I think spiritual maternity, we're just saying that that's the shape of our love as women, is to be we all literally have a space within us where a person can grow and be nourished, and that's actually true of our hearts also, of our being. So that whether or not we have the gift of having biological children, we have that capacity to be a space where others can be received and can grow and be nourished. And so wherever we are in our lives, and whatever our state of life, we can mother in that way. We can love in a way that brings life. So yeah, that capacity. Yeah, I think would be what I'd say.
And I just had one thought of sometimes we can feel like we have to force ourselves to be a spiritual mother to others. Like, okay, I'm gonna be a spiritual mother in that. I don't know about you. I remember trying that. It's hard to like grasp at a good and take it for myself. Like it actually, it isn't fruitful in that way. Actually, the fact that others stand before us, they will call it out of us. And so I don't have to force trying to be a spiritual mother. I don't have to force trying to make it look a certain way. But it actually is a gift that is called forth because the other stands before me. And it will look, again, Sister was talking about, it has a form. It's even particular to the one who stands before me. For a mother, she would mother each of her children particularly. Each of her children is different, right? So it's the same as true with spiritual maternity, and it's the gift that I don't have to like try to be a mother. I actually can just receive the gift of that identity as it's called forth by another.
That was a really beautiful and fruitful answer, so thank you. We have time for one more question, so I'm going to go here. Yes, please, thank you.
Thank you for your talk, sister. I didn't catch which sister that said to be a mother is to suffer and to love, and it got me thinking about some of my non-religious friends, female friends who we have lots of discussions about like women in modern society and how sort of motherhood can or rather having they sort of prioritize having a career, and motherhood sort of gives all that up, and they like obviously from a Catholic perspective we understand to be a mother is to suffer and to love, and there is that sort of joy in suffering, but how do you really explain from a more secular perspective what it means to be a mother? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'll start with a thought. Maybe the other sisters might have thoughts as well. I think a motherhood is not at odds with one's identity, right? I think our world can present like, and even in a woman who's pregnant and in crisis, for example, she's not thinking is this a baby or not? She's thinking it's either my life or the baby's life, right? If I have this baby, my life is over. So it's an identity crisis. And I think what you're speaking of, it strikes me as that being part of it. There's like, with a woman you're speaking to, there's like an identity crisis at play. Is if I'm a mother, then I can't be myself. Or being a mother wrecks all my dreams or is an obstacle to my full flourishing. And it's actually the opposite. As John Paul II would say, and the Second Vatican Council would say, that man finds himself by making a true gift of himself, right? So a woman, each of us, each person, we can only find out and flourish in the fullness of our identity and personhood by making a gift of ourselves in love. And so maternity is, and living our maternal love, as Mother and the sisters were sharing, is really doing that exactly, making a gift of myself, and in the course of doing that, finding myself in a way that I couldn't if I was trying to grasp and create my identity and trying to grasp and create myself. And so it's actually an invitation to a deeper flourishing. And there's a vulnerability in it, yes, right? Because to give myself or my to bear a child within in the womb, like that, there's a vulnerability to that. But there's a reality and a flourishing possible when we actually receive the gift and give the gift rather than trying to control or manipulate what I think my happiness should look like, I guess. I don't know if that's exactly what you're saying, but maybe sisters could tag on.
There's one more thing that's coming to mind. I'm not sure if it answers this question or the one before. I'm a bit of a slower processor, so it might be the one before. But I'm just thinking that there's a temptation to also think we're the source of our own maternity, or that we have to, the self-reliance that's current in our culture, or the strong bents of feminism that are present in our culture. So I just think that, yeah, that interplay between paternity and maternity is so important. And as spiritual mothers, as Sister was saying, the one before me, in a way, is the source of what the fruitfulness in my love, because they draw it out of me, but ultimately it's God. Ultimately it's Christ who's the source of, who God is the author of life. And so whether or not I'm consecrated or married, whatever state I'm in, we know as Christians, Christ is the bridegroom of every soul. So our relationship with Christ, and as Mother spoke beautifully into prayer, and deepening that with him, that is the source of fruitfulness in my life. So.
And just thinking of having conversations, especially with those maybe who don't have faith, don't have kind of the understanding of that we do of where the source. Where the source of our maternity is coming from. Really, maybe even being able to have fruitful conversations with people of, well, what defines you? Like, who are you? What if that's taken away from you? Like that. My guess is for many of the people that we know that are kind of out there in the world, they may not have ever thought about it, or they may be defining themselves by something that you're like, if that's taken away from you, what do you do? Like, where did the meaning go? So even to be able to kind of meet people where they're at and have conversations from that place of letting them kind of unfold, as Mother was talking about, this process of delighting in the other. It actually becomes a source of a gift for the other when you can kind of meet them where they're at and hear where they believe their identity rests. And being able to kind of in that place speak the reality of, even if that's taken away from you, I see your goodness. I see where you're coming from. I see the fact that you exist and therefore you are good. It doesn't require you to have your life looking a certain way, but sometimes that can be a helpful gift to people, of even just meeting them right where they're at and hearing why they believe what they believe, and who they believe they are and how they believe they're defined. So,
can we just give the Sisters of Life another round of applause? Thank you.